Coastal Carolina takes on Arkansas State, 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff this Thursday. The Coastal Carolina Chanticleers are minus 18, total 70. And if you like Arkansas State in an upset at home, they're plus $6 for some money line cash. And if you want to see which one of these free picks on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for my premium college football tier package picks on brockpage.com. Now, Arkansas State, they just give up way too many points. They're allowing 46 points a game and over 560 yards of total offense per contest. They're taking on a Coastal Carolina team who's amongst the heaviest hitters in college football with regard to scoring. The Chants are in the top 3 in offensive yards per play, and they're averaging over 48 points per contest. Running back Reese White averages over 7 yards a carry, and he scored 6 times on the ground. Meanwhile, senior Shamari Jones is gaining over 8 yards per touch himself. The Chants are gaining 255 yards a game on the ground. Total-wise, Coastal's 3-2 to the over thus far in the season. Arkansas State saw 3 out of their last 4 get over the line themselves. Give me Coastal Carolina minus 18 and the over 70. Next ball game, Houston versus Tulane, 7:30 p.m. East on Thursday night. The Houston Cougars are minus 5, total 61. Houston's on a 4-game winning streak, 3-1 against the spread in those victories. The Cougars are in the top 10 in the nation in pass defense, and they're led by linebacker Donovan Mutin, who's got a sack, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 28 total tackles for the Cougs. Houston's holding their opponents to just 144 pass yards per game. They're taking on a Tulane squad who lost their last 3 straight, and they also failed to cover the number in all 3 of those losses. The Green Wave allows over 40 points a game, and they rank 116th in rush yards allowed. Now, total-wise, Tulane's 4-1 to the over through 5 ball games. Houston saw 3 out of their last 4 get over the line themselves. Give me Houston minus 5 and the over 61. Next ball game, Temple versus Cincinnati, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff this Friday. The Cincinnati Bearcats are minus 28, totals 53.5. Now, the undefeated Bearcats are coming fresh off a double-digit win over Notre Dame. And as much as folks talk about Desmond Ridder in this Cincy offense, it's actually the defense who's in the top 10 in fewest yards allowed per play. Arquan Bush, Deshaun Price, and Ahmad Gardner, they all have 2 interceptions apiece. Meanwhile, linebacker Darian Beavers has a pair of sacks and 2 fumble recoveries as well. Now, Cincinnati's taking on a Temple squad who failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3, and they also rank 127th in first quarter scoring. Meanwhile, defensively, the Owls are also 104th in college football in fourth quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, Temple's 3-2 to the over thus far in the year. Cincy saw 2 out of their last 4 get over the line themselves. Give me Cincinnati minus 28 and the over 53.5. Next contest, Charlotte, FIU, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time this Friday. Charlotte's minus 3, totals 58.5. The 49ers of Charlotte, they're 4-1 against the number, top 10 in the country in defensive time of possession. As a matter of fact, this 49er defense is allowing only 174 passing yards a game. Marquise Watts has 3 sacks and a forced fumble, 36 total tackles for the defensive end. Charlotte's in the top 20 in fewest first quarter points allowed. They're taking on a 1-4 FIU team who doesn't rush the ball all too well. The Panthers are 101st in rush yards per game, 127th in fourth quarter scoring. Now, total-wise, Charlotte's 4-1 to the under for the year, 2-0 to the under in their 2 road games. Give me Charlotte minus 3 and the under 58.5. Next ball game, Stanford versus Arizona State, 10:30 p.m. Eastern start time Friday night. Arizona State's minus 11, totals 52. But as good as the Sun Devils are on defense, they've failed to cover the number in 2 out of their last 3 home games. They also allowed 27 points to BYU a couple of weeks a couple of weeks ago in a loss. They're taking on a Stanford team who won 3 out of their last 4, and they covered the spread 3 times during that span. The Stanford defense is allowing just 191 yards a game through the air, and then they're also led by Caillou Blue Kelly, who's got a pair of interceptions, a pick 6, 7 PBUs, and 26 total tackles. The Cardinal, they've beaten Arizona State in 6 out of their last 10 meetings. When it comes to the total in this one, Stanford saw 3 out of their last 5 stay under the line. Meanwhile, the Sun Devils saw 2 out of their last 3 home games stay under the total themselves. Give me Stanford plus 11 and the under 52. Next ball game, Oklahoma versus Texas, 12 p.m. Eastern kickoff this Saturday at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. The Oklahoma Sooners are -3, total 63.5. But as good as the Sooners' record is, they've actually been pretty bad against the point spread. They failed to cover the number in their last 3 straight, just 1-4 against the spread overall for the season. As a matter of fact, the Sooners have played Kansas State, West Virginia, Nebraska, and Tulane to 1-score games. They've also failed to cover the number in 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Texas. And speaking of the Longhorns, they've won their last 3 straight, and they also successfully covered the point spread in all 3 of those victories. The Longhorns are scoring 44 points a game and rushing for nearly 270 yards per contest. Bijan Robinson is averaging over 6.2 yards a carry, and he's rushed for 7 touchdowns already. The sophomore running back's also gaining over 130 yards a game on the ground as well. This high-powered Texas offense is in the top 10 in the nation in both second and third quarter scoring. Now, total-wise, 3 out of the Longhorns' last 4 outings got over the line. Meanwhile, Oklahoma's 3-2 to the over for the entire season themselves. Give me the Texas Longhorns plus 3 and the over 63.5. Next ball game, West Virginia, Baylor, 12 o'clock East. Baylor's -3, totals 44.5. Baylor's covered the number in 3 out of their last 4 ball games, 4 months straight up overall for the season. The Bears are in the top 10 in offensive yards from scrimmage. Abram Smith has 510 rush yards on the ground and 6 scores. The senior running back's averaging over 7.5 yards per carry, along with averaging over 100 yards a game. They're taking on a West Virginia club who just doesn't play well on the road. They're 0-2 straight up when traveling, and they're rushing for just 47 yards a game in those road losses. This West Virginia offense also ranks 125th in road scoring. Total-wise, 5 out of West Virginia's last 9 meetings with Baylor did get over the number. Meanwhile, the Bears saw 3 out of their last 4 get over the total themselves. Give me Baylor -3 and the over 44.5. Next ball game, Maryland, Ohio State, 12 o'clock Eastern start time. Ohio State's -20, total 68.5. The Buckeyes are on a 3-game winning streak, 2-0 against the number in their last couple of ball games as well. They're first in the nation in offensive yards per play. Travion Henderson's rushed for 510 yards and 7 scores. The freshman is averaging nearly 9.5 yards per carry and over 100 yards rushing per game. They're taking on a Maryland team who gave up 51 to Iowa this past Saturday. The Terps have also failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6 meetings with the Buckeyes, and they currently rank 95th in the country in second quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, Maryland saw 2 out of their last 3 ball games stay under the line. Ohio State also saw 2 out of their last 3 at home stay under the total. I'm going to lean toward Ohio State -20 and the under 68.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Vanderbilt versus Florida, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Florida's -38, totals 59.5. Despite a tough loss to Kentucky this past week, the Gators have still successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 3. They also have one of the best rushing attacks in the game. 295 yards a game the Gators are running for. The Gators have also scored 13 times on the ground as well. They're taking on a Vandy team who's failed to cover the number in their last 3 straight. and they also have a real tough time moving the football. The Commodores are ranked 124th in yards per play from scrimmage, and they're averaging only 16 points a game. Meanwhile, defensively, Vandy allows over 205 yards a game on the ground, which could be very problematic going up against Florida. Now, total-wise, Florida's last 3 home games fell under the line. 4-1 of the under for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward the Florida Gators minus 38 and the under 59.5 in a very tight window. Could be a shutout, guys. You never know. All right, next ball game, South Carolina, Tennessee, 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Tennessee's minus 11, totals 53. Now, Tennessee's failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3 home games. They're also 98th in second quarter points allowed. They're taking on a South Carolina team who's playing pretty well defensively. They're giving up just 17 points per contest, and they're holding their opponents to under 160 pass yards a game. Jalen Foster leads the country with 4 interceptions. The D-back also has 2 forced fumbles, a sack, and 39 total tackles. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, South Carolina's last 2 straight fell under the total, 4-1 of the under in their last 5. Meanwhile, Tennessee saw 6 out of their last 10 meetings with South Carolina stay under the total themselves. Give me South Carolina plus 11 and the under 53. Next ball game, Arkansas, Ole Miss, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The Ole Miss Rebels are minus 7, total 66. Ole Miss failed to cover the number in 2 out of their last 3 ball games. 112th in the country they rank in second quarter points allowed. They also failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Arkansas. And speaking of the Razorbacks, they're still 4-1 on the year despite their recent loss to Georgia. This Razorback defense is in the top 10 in fewest yards allowed per play, and they give up only 129 yards a game passing. Monteric Brown and Jalen Catalon, they each have a pair of interceptions out of this secondary. Meanwhile, Big Trey Williams has 4 sacks from the defensive line. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, Arkansas's last 2 straight both fell under the number. Meanwhile, Ole Miss saw 2 out of their last 4 fall under the number themselves. Give me Arkansas plus 7 in the under 66. Next contest, Northern Illinois versus Toledo, 12 o'clock Eastern start. The Toledo Rockets are minus 13, totals 55. Toledo's dropped 7 out of their last 10 meetings with the Huskies, and they rank 104th in the country in offensive time of possession. They're taking on a Northern Illinois team who does a real nice job running the football. They're currently in the top 20 in rush yards per game. Harrison Whaley has run for 574 yards and 4 scores. The freshman is averaging over 5.5 yards per carry and also 115 yards per game. The Huskies are on a 2-game winning streak, 4-1 against the spread overall for the season. And when it comes to the number in this one, Northern Illinois' last 2 straight both fell under the total. Meanwhile, Toledo's 3-0 to the under in their last 3 themselves. Give me NIU plus 13 in the under 55. Next matchup, Michigan State, Rutgers, 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff. The Michigan State Spartans are minus 5, totals 50.5. Now, Michigan State failed to cover in 2 out of their last 4. Their pass defense is amongst the worst in college football. The Spartans are allowing 310 yards a game passing through the air. Sparty's also got a slew of guys on the injury report. They're taking on a tough Rutgers team who's 4-1 against the spread thus far in the season, and they won 2 out of their last 3 at home. The Scarlet Knights allowed just 186 yards a game passing, and they rank in the top 20 in defensive time of possession. Olakunle Fadukasi has 3.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and 43 total tackles for the Scarlet Knights. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, 2 out of Rutgers' last 3 ball games got over the number. Meanwhile, Michigan State's 3-2 to the over for the entire season themselves. Give me Rutgers plus 5 and the over 50.5. Next ball game, not on our big screen, but it is going to be Akron versus Bowling Green, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The Bowling Green Falcons are minus 14, numbers 46. But as good as the Falcons have been covering the spread this season, they were catching points in each and every one of those covers. They weren't laying points, and they especially weren't laying double digits, and they especially weren't laying 14 points. The Falcons are scoring only 17 points a game, and they're averaging a measly 47 yards a game rushing. Bowling Green's currently 125th in the country in offensive yards per play. They're taking on an Akron team who's 20th in offensive time of possession. They do a real good job hanging on to the football there. And when it comes to the total in this one, Akron's 3-0 to the under in their last 3 straight. Bowling Green's 5-0 to the under for the entire season. Lots of unders this year in college football. Give me Akron plus 14, under 46. Next ball game, Georgia Tech versus Duke, 12:30 p.m. Eastern start time. Georgia Tech's minus 3, totals 59. Now the Yellow Jackets lost 2 out of their last 3. They're 104th in the country in first quarter scoring. The Yellow Jackets also don't have the ball in their hands for too long. They're 103rd in offensive time of possession. They're taking on a Duke squad who's 3-0 straight up on their home field this year. And they also successfully covered in all 3 of those victories. Now Duke's gaining over 220 yards a game on the ground. And they're led by running back Mateo Durant, who's gained 636 yards rushing already with 8 scores. Now, the senior running back's averaging over 127 yards a game on the ground. When it comes to the total in this one, Georgia Tech saw both of their contests away from home stay under the line. I'm going to lean toward Duke plus 3 in the under 59. Next matchup, Old Dominion versus Marshall, 2 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Marshall's minus 20, total 63. The Herd's on a 3-game losing streak, 1-3 against the spread in their last 4. Now, Marshall's got one of the worst rush defenses in the country. They're allowing over 215 yards a game on the ground. They're taking on an Old Dominion team who successfully covered the point spread in 3 out of their last 5 contests on the season. Now, the Monarchs, they're holding their opponents to just 179 yards a game passing. Jordan Young has 33 total tackles along with a sack. When it comes to the total in this one, Old Dominion's last 3 straight got over the number. Marshall's 4-1 to the over in their last 5. I'm going to lean toward Old Dominion plus 20 in the over 63. Next ball game, it is going to be Virginia versus Louisville, 3 p.m. East. Louisville's minus 3, total 65.5. Louisville's 3-0 against the number in their last 3 straight, 3-1 straight up in their last 4. Their offense is in the top 25 in fourth quarter scoring. They're taking on a Virginia squad who lost 2 out of their last 3, and they gave up 38 points or more in all 3 of those losses. This Cavalier defense is 107th in yards allowed per play. They're giving up nearly 200 yards a game on the ground. Just real quick, that Virginia stat there, I know those last 3 games they gave up a lot of points. I'm not sure if what I said was completely accurate, but they did give up a lot of points. I'll have to double check that and maybe get back to you in the comment section. But anyway, total-wise, Virginia saw their last 2 straight fall under the line. 4-1 to the under in their last 5. Meanwhile, Louisville's 3-2 to the under for the season. 6-1 to the under in their last 7 meetings with Virginia. I'm going to lean toward Louisville minus 3 in the under 65.5. Next ball game, San Jose State, Colorado State, 3:30 Eastern start time. Colorado State's minus 1, totals 45.5. Now the Colorado State Rams are 0-2 at home, 0-2 against the spread in those home losses. The Rams are 119th in offensive yards from scrimmage, and they're scoring only 20 points a game. Now they're taking on a San Jose State team who won 2 out of their last 3. And they rank in the top 20 in third quarter points allowed. Kyle Harmon has 44 total tackles on the year. Nehemiah Shelton with 34 tackles along with an interception himself. When it comes to the total, 3 out of the Spartans' last 4 ball games fell under the number. Meanwhile, Colorado State went 3-0 to the under in their last 3 themselves. Give me San Jose State +1 in the under 45.5. Next contest, SMU versus Navy, 3:30 p.m. East. SMU's -14, totals 57. The undefeated Mustangs have gone 4-1 against the spread in their 5 victories. SMU's averaging 43 points a game, and they throw for nearly 315 yards per contest. Tanner Mordecai is completing over 70% of his passes for 1,569 yards and 24 scores. Wide receivers Danny Gray and Rashee Rice, they have 13 touchdown catches between the two of them. They're taking on a Navy team who's 1-3 thus far in the season and ranks 127th in offensive yards per play. And this Navy offense is also 111th in first quarter scoring. Navy saw 3 out of their last 4 ball games get over the number. Meanwhile, SMU saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the line themselves. Give me SMU -14 in the over 57. Next ball game, Georgia, Auburn, 3:30 p.m. East. Georgia is -14 on the road, totals 45. The undefeated Bulldogs are 4-1 against the spread in their 5 victories. The Bulldogs have arguably the best defense in college football. They're first in the country in fewest yards allowed per play. Adam Anderson has 4 sacks, 1 PBU, and 17 total tackles. Meanwhile, linebacker Channing Tindall has 24 total tackles on the year as well. They're taking on an Auburn team who failed to cover in 2 out of their last 3. And they also rank 95th in offensive time and possession. The Tigers have also lost 8 out of their last 10 meetings with Georgia. And they failed to cover the point spread 8 times during that stretch. Now, total-wise, Auburn did go 3-0 to the over as the home team. Georgia went 3-1 to the over in their last 4 themselves. Give me Georgia -14 in the over 45. The next ball game, Wisconsin, Illinois, 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time. Wisconsin's -9, totals 42.5. Wisconsin's on a 2-game losing streak, 1-3 against the number in their last 4. The Badgers have a ton of guys on the injury report, and they're throwing for just 189 yards a game. They're taking on an Illinois team who's 3-0 against the number in their last 3 straight. The Illini is also rushing for over $180 a game. Now, total-wise, 6 out of Illinois' last 10 meetings with Wisconsin got over the number. The Badgers are 2-0 to the over in their last couple of ball games. Give me Illinois +9 in the over 42.5. Next game, Ball State, Western Michigan, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Western Michigan's -11, totals 57.5. The Western Michigan Broncos are on a 4-game winning streak. 4-0 against the number in those victories as well. This Bronco defense allows just 174 yards a game passing. And they're in the top 3 in defensive time of possession. Ali Fayyad has 4 sacks on the season, 1 forced fumble, and 14 total tackles for the defensive linemen. They're taking on a Ball State team who lost 3 out of their last 4 and finds themselves just 1-4 against the spread overall for the season. Ball State's averaging just 19 points a game, and they rank 11th in rush yards per contest. Now, total-wise, Ball State's 4-1 to the under in their last 5 ball games. Western Michigan went 4-1 to the under in their last 5 themselves. Give me Western Michigan -11 in the under 57.5. Next ball game, Miami, Ohio versus Eastern Michigan, 3:30 p.m. East. Miami's -1, totals 56.5. The Red Hawks are 0-3 straight up on the road, and they're 105th in first quarter scoring. They're taking on an Eastern Michigan team who won 2 out of their last 3, and they hold their opponents to just 187 yards a game passing. Tariq Spates has a sack, couple of PBUs, and 30 total tackles for the Eagles. When it comes to the total in this one, these teams' last 5 meetings all stayed under the number. Miami's also 3-0 to the under in their last 3 ball games. Give me Eastern Michigan +1 and the under 56.5. Just give me 1 sec here, guys. Just got to take a quick break. As you can tell, I'm not going to say I feel under the weather. It's absolutely seasonal allergies. I went camping on Saturday and immediately Sunday morning woke up just with all kinds of sniffles. and all that good stuff. So I'm going to try to get this background here straightened out. I think we're good here. But yeah, I apologize about the sniffles, but I'm just not an outdoor guy. I'm just not. I've always been an indoor guy, just watching games all day and stuff. But anyway, where are we at? This is a good one. This is one I think a lot of people are interested in. We want to see if Wake Forest is the real deal. But anyway, that ball game is Wake Forest versus Syracuse. 3:30 Eastern start time. Wake Forest is -6, totals 56.5. The undefeated Demon Deacons covered the number in 2 out of their last 3. They're averaging over 38 points a game, and they're led by Sam Hartman, who's thrown for nearly 1,300 yards, along with 11 touchdown passes. Now, the quarterback's also punched it in twice on the ground. They're taking on a Syracuse team who really isn't much of a threat passing. They throw for only $1.71 per contest. And of course, we got a emergency alert system on the background, so the background shot. But anyway, where are we at? You know, when it rains, it pours. But anyway, Syracuse, they are 94th in the country in fourth quarter scoring. When it comes to the total in this one, 2 out of Syracuse's last 3 at the Carrier Dome fell under the line. Meanwhile, Wake Forest is 4-1 to the under in their last 5 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Wake Forest -6 and the under 56.5. Next ball game, UConn versus UMass, the Toilet Bowl, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. UConn's -2.5, totals 55. But as bad as they are, the Huskies have been relatively competitive in their last couple of contests. They're currently 3-0 against the spread in their last 3 straight, so they are cashing tickets. And they just played back-to-back one-score games, so they're competitive. They're taking on a winless UMass club who failed to cover the number in their last 2 straight. The Minutemen are also allowing over 47 points a game, and they rank 127th in yards allowed per play. Now, total-wise, UMass went 2-0 to the under in their last couple of ball games. Meanwhile, UConn saw 2 out of their last 4 stay under the total themselves. Give me UConn -2.5 and the under 55. Next matchup, Middle Tennessee versus Liberty, 3:30 p.m. East. Liberty's -19, totals 58. The Liberty Flames are 4-1 straight up on the season, 4-1 against the number in those ball games. The Flames are giving up just 14 points per contest, and they're holding their opponents to only 151 yards a game passing. Kendi Charles has 4.5 sacks on the year, along with 8 total tackles. Meanwhile, Story Jackson has 2.5 sacks, a pick, and 38 total tackles as well. They're taking on a Middle Tennessee team who's winless on the road. They also failed to cover the number in all 3 of those road losses. The Blue Raiders are having a tough time running the football. They're 117th in rushing yards per game. Give me Liberty +19 and the over 58. All right, let's try to get this TV straightened out. If you're watching, or listening in your car, I apologize about the delay. But we want to get this right. Now, who the heck is this? Who is this woman? All right, we're going to pause that, bring up the app, and we are going to go to the 3:30 slate. Hopefully we don't have to do this again. That is what we want right there, guys. That's what we're looking at. Our next game, Florida State versus UNC, 3:30 Eastern start time. UNC's -17, number 63.5. Now, the Tar Heels are 3-0 in Chapel Hill, 3-0 against the spread in those home games. They're passing for 345 yards a game at home, and they're rushing for 243 in Chapel Hill as well. Sam Howell's thrown for nearly 1,500 yards, along with 17 total combined touchdowns. Meanwhile, wide receiver Josh Downs has caught 40 balls for 620 yards and 6 scores. The sophomore wide receiver, he's averaging 124 receiving yards a game. Now, they're taking on a 1-4 Florida State defense who gives up over 31 points a game. The Noles have also failed to cover the point spread in their last 4 straight outings. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Florida State's last 4 ball games fell under the total. Meanwhile, UNC, UNC. We're going to lean toward UNC, minus 17, and the under 63.5. Next ball game, Florida Atlantic versus UAB, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. UAB's minus 5, totals 49. Now, UAB struggled to light up the scoreboard here. They're 98th in college football in scoring on average per game. They also dropped 5 out of their last 7 meetings with Florida Atlantic. And speaking of FAU, they've won 3 out of their last 4 ball games. They've also gone 4-1 against the spread for the entire season. Now, FAU does a pretty nice job running the football. They're averaging almost 200 yards a game on the ground. N'Kosi Perry's also thrown for nearly 1,300 yards, along with 10 scores and just 1 interception. Now, total-wise, 2 out of the Owls' last 3 ball games got over the number. They also saw their last 7 straight meetings with UAB get over the line. Give me FAU plus 5 in the over 49. Next contest, some more MACtion. Talking about Central Michigan versus Ohio, 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time this Saturday. But if it's not on Tuesday or Wednesday, is it really MACtion? I don't know. I think that's debatable. But anyway, Central Michigan, they're minus 6, numbers 55.5. Central Michigan's doing a real nice job throwing the football. Dallas Dixon and Ja'Cory Sullivan, they each have, they don't each have, but they do have 11 receiving touchdowns between the two of them combined. The Chippewas are throwing for over 300 yards a game. They're taking on an Ohio team who allows 32 points a game themselves, 1-4 against the spread in their last 5. Now, the Bobcats have lost 9 out of their last 10 meetings with the Chippewas, and they failed to cover 8 times during those meetings. Ohio's 2-0 to the under in their last couple of ball games. Central Michigan went 3-2 to the under in their last 5. Give me Central Michigan minus 6 in the under 55.5. All right, next ball game. It is going to be Boise State versus BYU, 3:30 p.m. East. BYU's minus 5, totals 55. The Cougars have successfully covered the point spread in 3 out of their last 4. They're also in the top 20 in second quarter scoring. And they're led by Tyler Allgeier, who scored 7 times on the ground and averages over 113 yards a game rushing. Now, defensively, the undefeated Cougars are in the top 15 in fewest first quarter points allowed. They're taking on a Boise team who lost 2 out of their last 3 themselves. They have a bunch of guys on the injury report. This Boise offense has also failed to establish a proper run game. Just 74 yards a game they're averaging on the ground. But even more troublesome, this Bronco defense is giving up just about 200 yards a game rushing on the defensive side of the ball. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Boise's last 3 ball games fell under the number. Meanwhile, BYU's 4-1 to the under for the entire season. Give me BYU minus 5 and the under 55. Next contest, Penn State versus Iowa, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The Iowa Hawkeyes are minus 3, totals 42. And as good as the Hawkeyes have been defensively, they really haven't been stellar on the offensive side of things. I know they had a couple of good games where they scored a bunch of points, but the Hawkeyes are currently 113th in offensive yards per play, and they're throwing for just 194 yards a game. Now, they're taking on a stingy Penn State defense who allows just 12 points a game, and they also rank in the top 10 in fewest yards allowed per play. Jair Brown has 3 interceptions and 14 tackles from that Penn State secondary. Meanwhile, Brandon Smith is leading the defense with 32 total tackles. The undefeated Nittany Lions are 4-1 against the spread thus far in the year, and they actually throw for nearly 290 yards a game. Now, total-wise, both schools are 4-1 to the under in their 5 respective contests. Iowa's 3-0 to the under in their last 3 at Kinnick Stadium. Give me Penn State plus 3 and the under 42. Next ball game, North Texas versus Missouri, 4 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Missouri Tigers are minus 20, total 67. Missouri's on a 2-game losing streak, 0-5 against the spread thus far in the season. Mizzou's 124th in yards allowed per play. They're also giving up 38 points a game. They're taking on a North Texas team who certainly likes to run the football. They're gaining over 205 yards per contest on the ground. DeAndre Torrey's averaging nearly 6 yards per carry. And he's also gaining over 103 yards per contest on the ground. Now, total-wise, North Texas is 4-0 to the under thus far in the year. I'm going to lean toward North Texas plus 20 and the under 67. Next ball game, Oregon State versus Washington State, 4 o'clock Eastern start time. Oregon State's -3, totals 59. Oregon State's on a 4-game winning streak, 4-0 against the spread in those victories. The Beavers are they're actually in the top 20 in rushing, and they're led by B.J. Baylor, who gains nearly 7 yards a carry, and he's also rushed for 9 touchdowns. Now, the junior's also gaining 107 yards a game on the ground. Meanwhile, defensively, the Beavers are in the top 25 in third quarter points allowed. They're taking on a Washington State team who lost 2 out of their last 3, and they rank 106th in rush yards per game. Meanwhile, defensively, Washington State is 119th in fourth quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, Washington State is 4-1 to the under on the season. Oregon State saw 2 out of their last 3 stay under the line. I'm going to lean toward the Oregon State Beavers -3 and the under 59. Next contest, East Carolina versus UCF, 6 o'clock Eastern kickoff. UCF's -10, total 68. The Knights of UCF, they're 2-0 at home, and they're averaging 41 points a game. The Knights are currently in the top 20 in offensive yards per play. They're taking on an ECU club who failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5. They allow nearly 320 pass yards a game. Equally as bad, East Carolina is 116th in yards allowed per play. Now, total-wise, ECU's 3-0 to the over in their last 3 straight. UCF's 4-0 to the over in their last 4 themselves. Give me UCF -10 and the over 68. Next contest, TCU versus Texas Tech, 7 o'clock East. TCU's -1 on the road, total 62.5. Now, TCU has yet to cover a point spread this season. Having said that, though, they're still scoring 35 points a game, and they're rushing for nearly 200 yards a game on the ground. Zach Evans is gaining over 7.5 yards per carry, and he scored 3 times on the ground for the Frogs. They're taking on a banged-up Texas Tech team who's got a quarterback out with a collarbone, and their star receiver is in concussion protocol. So these guys are pretty banged up. The Red Raiders are also 102nd in points allowed per game. Now, total-wise, Texas Tech is 3-2 to the under on the year, 60% to the under in their last 10 meetings with TCU. Give me TCU -1 and the under 62.5. Next game, Wyoming versus Air Force, 7 o'clock Eastern start. Air Force is -4, totals 48.5. But despite their record, Air Force is beating up on teams like Navy, New Mexico, and FCS Lafayette out of Easton, PA, wherever that is, Easton, Pennsylvania. But anyway, they failed to cover the number in 9 out of their last 10 meetings with Wyoming. And speaking of the Cowboys, they're undefeated on the season, and they successfully covered the number in 2 out of their last 3. Wyoming's averaging 35 points a game. When it comes to the number in this one, 7 out of Wyoming's last 10 meetings with Air Force stayed under the number. Meanwhile, the Falcons saw 2 out of their last 3 home games stay under the total as well. Give me Wyoming +4 and the under 48.5. Next game, Buffalo versus Kent State, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Kent State's -5, total 63.5. Kent State's failed to cover in their last 3 straight, 1-4 against the spread overall for the season. The Golden Flashes are throwing for just $188 a game. They're taking on a Buffalo team who's in the top 25 in second quarter points allowed. Taylor Riggins has 4 sacks on the year, along with 2 forced fumbles and 21 tackles. And when it comes to the number in this one, 3 out of Buffalo's last 4 ball games fell under the line. Meanwhile, Kent State's 5-0 to the under for the whole year themselves. Give me Buffalo -5 and the under 63.5. Next matchup, Georgia Southern versus Troy, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Troy's minus 4.5, totals 50. The Trojans are on a 2-game losing streak, 1-3 against the spread in their last 4. Troy's rushing for just 91 yards a game, and they rank 104th in yards per play from scrimmage. They're taking on a Georgia Southern team who does like to pound the football. They're in the top 5 in rush yards per game. They're led by Logan Wright, who averages nearly 8.5 yards per carry and scored 4 times on the ground. Total-wise, 4 out of these teams' last 7 gatherings got over the number. Georgia Southern also saw 2 out of their last 3 ball games get over the line. Give me the Georgia Southern Eagles plus 4.5 and the over 50. Next ball game, South Alabama versus Texas State, 7 o'clock Eastern start. South Alabama's minus 3, numbers 53. The South Alabama Jaguars are 3-1 thus far in the season, and they're allowing just 16 points per game. Yam Banks has 2 forced fumbles and 16 total tackles from that safety position. Meanwhile, Wakavius Thomas has 1.5 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and 15 total tackles from the D-line. Georgia Southern has successfully covered the number in their last 2 straight. They're taking on a Texas State team who gains just 196 yards a game passing, and they rank 120th in offensive yards per play. The Bobcats are currently on a 2-game losing streak, and they failed to cover the number in both of those losses. They're also allowing 37 points per contest. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, Texas State is 2-0 to the over in their last couple of contests. South Alabama saw 3 out of their last 4 stay under the line themselves. We're going to lean toward the under in this one. Give me South Alabama minus 3 and the under 53. Next ball game, UTSA, Western Kentucky, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Western Kentucky's minus 3, total 67. The Hilltoppers are on a 3-game losing streak, 217 yards a game they're giving up on the ground. This Western Kentucky defense also allows 35 points a game. They're taking on a 5-0 Texas San Antonio squad who scores 35 points a game themselves and also holds their opponents to just 17 points per contest. Clarence Hicks has 3.5 sacks on the season and a forced fumble. Meanwhile, Rashad Wisdom leads the team with 25 total tackles, along with 2 PBUs. The Roadrunners are holding their opponents to just 69 yards a game rushing. And total-wise, UTSA's 4-0 to the under in their last 4 straight. Give me UTSA plus 3 and the under 67. Next ball game, UTEP versus Southern Miss, 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff. The UTEP Miners are minus 1.5, totals 45 and a hook. UTEP's on a 2-game winning streak, 4-1 straight up in their last 5. UTEP's led by Tyrese Knight, who's got a forced fumble and 33 total tackles. They're taking on a Southern Miss squad who lost their last 3 straight and failed to cover in 4 out of their last 5. The Golden Eagles are scoring just 17 points a game, and they're throwing for only $178. When it comes to the number in this one, 3 out of UTEP's last 4 ball games got over the total. I'm going to lean toward UTEP minus 1.5 in the over 45 and a hook. Next ball game, Michigan versus Nebraska, 7:30 Eastern start time. Michigan's minus 3, totals 52. Now, this undefeated Michigan team went 4-1 against the spread in their 5 victories this year. They also got themselves one of the best rushing attacks in the country, as Blake Corum's averaging 6.2 yards a carry, and he scored 7 times on the ground. Now, Corum is also gaining over 104 yards a game on the ground. Michigan is scoring they're scoring 40 points per contest. Not less, not more. They're scoring 40 points per contest. Nebraska lost 2 out of their last 3. They're 93rd in the country in first quarter scoring. 3 out of the Huskers' last 5 meetings with Michigan did get over the line. Michigan saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the number as well. Give me Michigan minus 3 in the over 52. Next game, LSU, Kentucky, 7:30 p.m. East. Kentucky's minus 3, totals 52.5. The undefeated Wildcats went 4-1 against the number in their 5 victories. This Wildcat defense, they allow only 16 points a game, and they rank in the top 15 in yards allowed per play. J.J. Weaver's got 4 sacks, an interception, a forced fumble, and 15 total tackles on the season. Meanwhile, offensively, on the other side of the ball, running back Chris Rodriguez is gaining over 122 yards a game on the ground. Now, they're taking on an LSU squad who rushes for just 71 yards per contest themselves. Meanwhile, defensively, the Tigers are 126th in fourth quarter points allowed. Now, total-wise, 3 out of LSU's last 4 ball games fell under the number. Meanwhile, Kentucky saw their last 2 straight fall under the total themselves. Give me the Kentucky Wildcats -3 and the under 52 and a hook. Next ball game, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, 7:30 Eastern kickoff. Notre Dame's -2, totals 46 and a hook. The Fighting Irish failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5 ball games. They also have a slew of guys on the injury report. Notre Dame's done a really poor job of establishing the run game as well. These guys are gaining just 80 yards a game on the ground. Now they're taking on a Virginia Tech team who's won 3 of 4 this year, and that includes a victory in the season opener over UNC. Now the Hokies give up just 15 points a game, and they're holding their opponents to just 190 yards a game passing. Jermaine Waller has 3 interceptions thus far in the season, along with 21 total tackles. When it comes to the scoring in this one, 2 out of Virginia Tech's last 3 meetings with the Irish got over the line. Meanwhile, Notre Dame is 3-2 to the over for the entire year themselves. Give me Virginia Tech +2 and the over 46.5. Next ball game, Utah versus USC, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. The USC Trojans are -3, totals 51.5. USC's won 2 out of their last 3 ball games, top 20 in the country in passing. Drake London has 48 catches for 670 yards and 4 touchdowns. The wide receivers are averaging 134 yards a game receiving. Meanwhile, defensively, USC's in the top 20 in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. They're taking on a Utah team who lost 2 out of their last 3, and they've yet to cover a point spread this year. The Runnin' Utes are 124th in the nation in third quarter scoring. Now, total-wise, 6 out of Utah's last 10 meetings with USC got over the number. Meanwhile, the Trojans saw 3 out of their last 4 ball games get over the line themselves. Give me USC -3 and the over 51.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Alabama versus Texas A&M, 8 p.m. Eastern kickoff. The Alabama Crimson Tide are -18, totals 51.5. Alabama's averaging 46 points a game. Bryce Young is completing 73% of his passes, and he's thrown 17 touchdowns already. Meanwhile, defensively, the Tide's allowing just 18 points a game and has 6 interceptions. Henry To'o is leading the defense with 35 total tackles. They're taking on a Texas A&M team who struggles to move the football down the field. The Aggies have scored 22 points or less in 3 out of their last 4 ball games. They also rank 101st in scoring on average per game. Now, total-wise, the Aggies saw 5 out of their last 9 meetings with Alabama get over the line. Meanwhile, Bama saw 2 out of their last 3 ball games get over the total themselves. Give me Alabama -18 and the over 51.5. Next matchup, Georgia State versus UL Monroe, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Georgia State's -16, totals 52. Georgia State is just 1-4 thus far in the season, and they lost both of their road games. The Panthers are scoring just 17 points a game, and they're throwing for just $144. Georgia State currently ranks 110th in offensive yards per play. They're taking on a UL Monroe team who's 2-0 at home, and they successfully covered the point spread in both of those victories. Now, the Warhawks are in the top 15 in third quarter points allowed. Ty Shelby's 7th in the nation with 5 sacks on the year. The seniors also got a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 16 total tackles. Now, when it comes to the number in this one, 4 out of Monroe's last 6 meetings with Georgia State got over the line. Meanwhile, the Panthers went 2-0 to the over in their last couple of games, 4-1 to the over for the entire season. Give me UL Monroe plus 16 and the over 52. Guys, we're in the home stretch. I'm suffering right now, but we are almost done. Next matchup, Memphis versus Tulsa, 9 o'clock Eastern kickoff. The Tulsa Golden Hurricanes are -4, total 61. Tulsa's just 1-4, and they allow over 33 points per contest. They're taking on a Memphis club who's in the top 15 in offensive yards per play, and they score over 37 points a game. Brandon Thomas is rushing for nearly 7 yards a carry, and he's also rushing for over 100 yards a game. Meanwhile, Calvin Austin III has caught 35 balls for 637 and 7 touchdowns. The senior wide receiver is averaging over 127 yards per contest. Now, they're taking on a 1-4 Tulsa team who's scoring only 22 points a game offensively. Meanwhile, defensively, the Golden Hurricane is 96th in the nation in pass yards per game. They're allowing over 33 points per contest. Tulsa's 4-1 to the over on the season, 2-1 to the over at home. Meanwhile, Memphis saw 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Tulsa get over the number as well. Give me Memphis plus 4 and the over 61. Next ball game, New Mexico versus San Diego State, 9 o'clock Eastern kickoff. San Diego State's -19.5, totals 44. The undefeated Aztecs have gone 3-0 against the spread in their last 3 straight. The Aztecs are scoring 37 points a game, and they're rushing for over 250 yards per contest. Meanwhile, defensively, the Aztecs are in the top 3 in fewest yards allowed per play. They're giving up only 45 yards a game on the ground. Patrick McMorris has an interception, 3 PBUs, and 24 total tackles for the Aztecs. They're taking on a New Mexico team who scores only 16 points a game, and they rank 121st in offensive yards per play. The Lobos are 0-5 against the spread overall for this season. 2 out of the Lobos' last 4 ball games got over the number. Meanwhile, San Diego State saw their last 3 straight get over the line. Give me San Diego State -19.5. That's San Diego State -19.5. And the over 44. Guys, I apologize so much, but I gotta. It's just me. It's just me on my own. So I gotta produce the content, rain or shine. So sorry about the sniffles. Anyway, next game, UCLA versus Arizona, 10:30 Eastern start time. UCLA is -16, total 61. The Bruins are averaging 35 points per contest, and they're rushing for nearly 200 yards a game. Zach Charbonnet and Britton Brown, they've combined for 10 total touchdowns on the ground. Meanwhile, defensively, the Bruins give up just 86 yards a game rushing. They're taking on a winless Arizona team who's 107th in offensive yards per play. The Wildcats are averaging 17 points a game and also rank 114th in rushing. Now, total-wise, Arizona saw 2 out of their last 4 stay under the line. They also went 6-4 to the under in their last 10 meetings with UCLA. Give me UCLA -16 and the under 61. And with that, guys, it's time for our next and final matchup. New Mexico State versus Nevada, 10:30 p.m. East. Nevada's -32.5, total 61. The Wolfpack's in the top 10 in the country in passing. Carson Strong's completing 68% of his passes for over 1,200 yards. Strong's throwing for over 300 yards a game. Meanwhile, wide receiver Romeo Doubs is averaging over 100 yards a game receiving himself. They're taking on a New Mexico State team who lost their last 2 straight, and they find themselves 1-5 straight up overall for the season. The Aggies are gaining just 95 yards a game on the ground. Meanwhile, defensively, they're 123rd in yards allowed per play. Now, scoring-wise, 3 out of the Aggies' last 4 ball games got over the line. Meanwhile, Nevada's 3-0 to the over in their last 3 themselves. Give me Nevada -32.5 and the over 61. With that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com. Give me Coastal Carolina -18 over 70. Houston -5 over 61. Cincinnati minus 28 over 53.5. Charlotte minus 3 under 58 and a hook. Stanford plus 11 under 52. Texas plus 3 over 63.5. Baylor minus 3 over 44 and a hook. Ohio State minus 20 under 68.5. Florida minus 38 under 59 and a hook. South Carolina plus 11 under 53. Arkansas plus 7 under 66. Northern Illinois plus 13 under 55. Give me Rutgers plus 5 over 50.5 points. Give me Akron plus 14 under 46. I'm also leaning toward the Duke Blue Devils plus 3 and the under 59. I also like Old Dominion plus 20 over 63. Give me Louisville minus 3 under 65.5. San Jose State plus 1 under 45 and a hook. I'm also leaning toward SMU minus 14 and the over 57. I also like the Georgia Bulldogs minus 14 and the over 45 points. Give me Illinois plus 9 over 42 and a hook. Western Michigan minus 11 under 57.5. Eastern Michigan plus 1 under 56 and a hook. Wake Forest minus 6 under 56.5. UConn, those mighty Huskies, minus 2.5 under 55. Liberty minus 19 over 58. North Carolina minus 17 under 63.5. Florida Atlantic plus 5 over 49. Central Michigan minus 6 under 55.5. All the directional Michigans, I believe, we're leaning toward here. BYU minus 5 under 55 points. Penn State plus 3 under 42. North Texas plus 20 under 67. Oregon State minus 3 under 59. UCF minus 10 over 68 points. TCU minus 1 under 62.5. Wyoming plus 4 under 48 and a hook. Buffalo minus 5 under 63.5. Georgia Southern plus 4.5 over 50 points. South Alabama minus 3 under 53. UTSA plus 3 under 67. UTEP minus 1.5 over 45 and a hook. Michigan minus 3 over 52. Kentucky minus 3 under 52.5. Virginia Tech plus 2 over 46 and a hook. I'm also leaning toward USC minus 3 over 51.5. Alabama minus 18 over 51 and a hook. UL Monroe plus 16 over 52. Give me Memphis plus 4 over 61. I'm also leaning toward San Diego State minus 19.5 over 44. Give me UCLA minus 16 under 61. Before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for my college football tier membership on my website. And once again, that's brockpage.com. Give me the Nevada Wolfpack minus 32.5 and the over 61. And with that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the day. And that is going to go to, it's on our YouTube platform. That's going to go to King Dino, who said the other day, "Amazing, bro. Really appreciate you." That's what King Dino said to me. So anyway, King Dino, appreciate the kind words. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on my website at brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today, just keep in mind, we utilize the Patreon platform, and Patreon's going to bill you the day you sign up, and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today, you're going to get access to that content all the way through the end of October. I always tell folks the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And once again, I apologize about the sniffles. It's seasonal allergies. I get it every year this time of year. This has been one of the worst cases. And like I said the other night, when camping on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, boom, sore throat, sniffles, sick as a dog. But anyway, guys, with all that in mind, happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.